welcome to Future Fest. This is our second streamed Future Fest for 2020, and it is my great pleasure to be beaming into classrooms all around Australia, talking to some epic entrepreneurs and helping you to bend the future one youth-led idea at a time. Before we kick off, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of our land, and I want to do that by showing two maps. And the first one you'll see here is one that I'm sure you've seen before. In fact, I'd love for you to have a think about how old you were when you first saw this map. I mean, for me, it would have been early primary school, maybe grade 1 or grade 2, and I would have seen this map, and I distinctly remember having to learn the states and memorize all the capital cities. And I was horrified many years later, actually, when I was in a car with a friend in Melbourne who tried to tell me that Melbourne was actually the capital of New South Wales, and she was 23 at this time, and I remember being horrified because this is the basics of primary school, right? Anyway, like me, you were probably in primary school when you first saw this map, and what I'd love to do is show you another one and have a think about how old you were when you saw this map. For me, I would have been in my late 20s. It was much, much later than when I saw that first map of Australia to when I saw this one. And I remember being quite curious about where it had come from because it was so much later that I recognised it. For those that don't know, this is a map of our Indigenous peoples in Australia, and we are one of the oldest countries in the world with some of the most incredible, rich history sitting behind. And when we talk about innovation, sometimes there's this mantra that we should throw out the old and bring in the new. And why I want to start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land is because I want to pay homage to the incredible wisdom that exists in our past and acknowledge that elders past, present and emerging are contributing to the very foundations of what Australia will be moving forward. The best steps for innovation are to acknowledge our past, to look at what's worked and looked at what hasn't and try and do something different and better moving into our future. Now it's a chance for us to check in with you. So you've logged in to Future Fest. You might be sitting in a classroom, in a library, in a hall. You've got your friends around you, and you've got an opportunity to tap into a pretty exciting day of speakers and obviously around the topic of youth entrepreneurship and how we build ideas that really make our world a better place. But we want to take a temperature check and kind of see where you're at. So we're going to give you a couple of minutes now, and there's a survey link that's on the screen. So we're going to give you 3 minutes. Jump into this really quick type form, and I think there's about 5 or 6 questions for you to fill out that just kind of lets us know where you're at. So jump in there now, we'll give you a few minutes and let us know where you're at and what you want to get out of today. Thank you so much for taking the time to fill out that survey. At Future Anything, we are so interested in hearing what our young people think. So you'll get another survey at the end of the day where you'll get to feedback the things that you liked and the things that you wish were different too. So stay tuned for that link later in the morning and an opportunity for us to hear from you again. I just want to tap in quickly and talk about our community. You can find us across socials. So maybe if your school has a phone ban, don't pull out your phone right now. But when you get a chance, if you're on socials, you can find us on our website, and that's got a whole bunch of information about our programs, but also there's a cool page that has all of our finalists from the last 2 years in our program, and you can watch their pictures on that page. So definitely check out our website to see some incredible pictures from the last 2 years of our grand finals. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. Got to be honest, we're a little bit average on the Instagram posting at the moment, but we're going to try and lift up our game. However, our Facebook page is an absolute goldmine of innovation. So if you're looking for some cool new ideas or to see what's happening around innovation, entrepreneurship and business, then definitely go through a scroll on our Facebook page because you might find some really cool ideas that might spark your own thinking. Now, who are we? Why are we here? What are we doing? If you haven't seen my face before, you know, who am I? My name's Nick Dyson. I'm the founder of Future Anything and the director. And back in the day, I was a teacher. And whilst I was a teacher, I taught HPE and English in the classroom around Brisbane schools. My first job was at Tullawong State High School, actually, teaching, many years ago. And when I got out of university and I got into the classroom as a teacher, I've noticed that with my students that there were lots of occasions where young people would be disengaged from the learning that was happening in the classroom, and they would question the content. And I'd love for you to think about now, how many times have you had a thought around why are we doing this? And I certainly got asked that question a lot as a teacher in the classroom, like, Miss, why are we doing this? And I think for many of the students in the classroom, they felt like the classroom experience was kind of like this image here, a little bit black and white. My favorite is the guy like in the front row, like second across. He looks like he's having a really great time. But for many young people in my classrooms, despite my best efforts to make the content interesting, I think they felt like their experience at school was a little bit like this. And year after year that I was working in the education system, I started to wonder whether I should be spending quite so much time writing engagement programs or cool fun activities for kids outside of school, when really I felt like the problem was that young people weren't tapped into what was happening during school. And that all came to a head for me with one particular class that I had probably about 6 years ago. And there was 2 boys in the class who I'd kept back at lunchtime because they'd taken one of those bathroom breaks where they went by the bubbler on the other side of the school, via the toilets on the other side of the school. The one where the toilet break takes you like 20 minutes instead of 5. And so they were repaying back that time in a lunch break. And the boys were working and completing their work, and one of the boys looked up at me and he said, "I don't mean to be rude, miss, but why are we doing this?" And I mean, at that particular point in time, as I said before, that wasn't the first time that I'd been asked that question. It certainly wasn't the first time that I'd wondered the same thing myself. But for whatever reason in that moment, I couldn't quite spit out the stock standard answers that I'd given before. Typically, I would say, this work is really important for your future and it's about learning to learn, and it might not seem relevant now, but it will be relevant later. But in that moment in time, all I could think about was my maths teacher when I was at school, who, when I was distracted in the classroom, said to me, "Nicole, you really need to pay attention to this. It's not like you'll have a calculator in your pocket everywhere you go." And I think back now, and the reality is I do. I do have a calculator in my pocket everywhere I go. And so education and learning has shifted so far that I looked at this particular student in front of me and I wondered whether what I was teaching them really was helping them. And so I looked at the student and I said, "Because we have to, and I'm sorry." And for me, that was a real turning point, because I realized that young people aren't disengaged necessarily because the curriculum is boring. They're disengaged because the curriculum doesn't feel relevant. And so that sparked a completely different journey for me, where I started to play with curriculum and learning in the classroom to try and build the real world context in. Because I figured that if young people could see why they were learning something, they would be interested in learning it. And so that's where Future Anything was born. And over the past 3 years, we've built the program from 115 students in a single school through to just under 50 schools around the country engaging in our program this year. And over the course of a term, they embark in a very specific mission. And the program's embedded in science classrooms, it's embedded in English classrooms, and it's embedded in your business or your enterprise classrooms. And over the course of 10 weeks, sometimes 20 weeks, you tap into a mission. And that mission, although the wording might be different for your school, is something along the lines of, as an entrepreneur, pitch an innovative idea that makes the world a better place. And to do that, to achieve that mission, we use our Entrepreneur's Odyssey. And over the last few years, this Odyssey has evolved out of seeing the steps that are most important for young people to design epic business solutions that not only make them money, but also make their world a better place. And you'll see the first 2 steps are, where have you come from and what matters to you? Because we believe that the best entrepreneurs design off the back of their lived experiences and their passion. So in this program, we really want to tap into the stuff that matters to you. If you really care about rugby, you play rugby 3 times a week, you play on the weekends, and it's something you're passionate about, we'd love to see you designing a solution that makes that sport better for you and better for other players. If you're a really passionate musician and that's something that you love to listen to music, you love to play music, you love to get involved with new instruments or jamming with your friends, then we want to see you tap into that passion and design incredible solutions that make music better for perhaps yourself or for other people in the world. This is about designing solutions that you care about, that make the world around you better for not only yourself, but also the people that matter to you. Off that back of considering your lived experiences and your passions, you will move through a number of other steps that ask you to look deeply at the problem that you want to solve and work out what are the causes and consequences of it. who else is tackling that problem, and then moving into ideation to try and design your own innovative or new solutions that solve the problem that you want to tackle. From there, we look at the value proposition, which we're going to talk about today, but basically what makes your idea different. We then look at how that business model works. So can you make money off your idea? We look at testing your idea. We look at marketing and branding. We look at pitching your idea. And finally, step number 10 in our Entrepreneur's Odyssey is that whole image of a young person stepping through into an unknown future, because we believe that youth-led ideas have the power to bend the future. And to show you the power of this, I guess, the evolution for young people and the opportunity that exists in this program, I want to show you a short video of our grand final last year, because every participant in our program this year has the opportunity to submit their ideas for the chance to win thousands of dollars in cash, funding, prizes and support to launch their ideas out of the classroom and into the real world. Let's tap into last year's grand final and meet some of our finalists and hear from some of our judges from this event.
So Future Anything, the grand final tonight, can you believe it?
We put everything together for our showcasing and now we're ready for the grand final.
It'll be really fun. It's been a very big lead up to this.
We're the founders of Culturehood, where we try and raise awareness for women suffering from domestic violence.
My platform is called Bubbly and it is an app for girls with low self-esteem or self-acceptance issues.
We're an organisation that helps single parents. So we want to kind of bring communities together and everyone to help each other out.
Our enterprise is a business to stop bullying throughout junior sporting clubs and in schools.
So I'm a judge tonight. It's got to be difficult to be the judge on the table, engaging with the next generation of entrepreneurs, the leaders, and activates them towards really solving for grand challenges.
For me, I'm always interested in something that has impact. It's got to make the world a better place.
I'll be looking at how clearly have they thought through their value proposition.
As soon as you get up there, you might have nerves flying all around, but once you get up and you start speaking, I promise you it'll be fine.
You and I, we're going to go up to the big house. Let's go to eHealth. Let's have a meeting with them and let's show them exactly what it is that you just showed the room tonight.
Everything that we see and hear here tonight is actually about the future of this country.
The winner is Culturehood.
Without this subject, we wouldn't have our ideas come to life.
Coming into Future Anything, it's giving me opportunities.
We do it because we enjoy it, have passion for it.
We'll then have it build and expand before the time that we graduate.
This is what could come out of it. You could make it and you can go somewhere.
I would be also willing to help you in that initial stages of that journey, because I think that can go all the way.
What we see in nights like this is start where you are with the issues and the problems you're trying to solve, and then you can think about kind of taking over the world.
Awesome. So as you can see there, our grand final last year, we had over 300 people at a venue in Brisbane where we had a bunch of incredible teams pitch for the chance to take home the prizes and the funding to launch their ideas out of the classroom and into the real world. And we had some incredible judges that not only gave feedback on our students' ideas, but also made offers to those students off stage to support them, even if they weren't the winner on the night. We also had incredible offers from our audience as well. So we had showcase students who had a trade show display with their ideas, and we had all of our audience members vote for their favorite that was the People's Choice. Some of our audience members, as I said, even offered sponsorship and funding to the ideas that they loved the most, that spoke to them. So there's heaps of opportunity in this space. The question we get a lot at this point is, well, I don't think my idea is going to be good enough to apply for the grand final. And I would love to encourage you to apply regardless of how good you think your idea is. Because our judges, when they're picking our finalists, are looking for ideas that have potential and passionate entrepreneurs. Because through the process of being selected in the final and then pitching in the final, we work with you to support you to pitch confidently. To help you refine your business idea and make sure that you feel ready and confident to pitch. So if you don't feel confident right now, don't worry about that. Every single young person that stood on our stage and pitched has been incredibly nervous, and I guarantee you did not think that they could do it at the time that they jumped up on stage, but they were able to. And later on today, we're actually chatting to our grand final winners from the last 2 years who will tell you all about that experience and how nervous they were and what that was like for them being selected for the grand final and then pitching at that event. Now, to move through today, we have a few rules. Well, actually, we call them culture conditions. These are the ways that we work together with each other. And our first culture condition is we listen first. Here at Future Anything, we believe that the way that we show respect to the people around us is that we hold space when somebody is talking to us. So if we're speaking or if the speakers are speaking, it's really important that you stay engaged to their message because you never know what piece of gold you might pick up if you stay listening to that person whilst they're speaking to you. And similarly, when somebody's speaking to me, then I hold space for them because I respect who they are and the time that they're giving me. Our second culture condition is we're humble and we're kind. Sometimes in entrepreneurship or innovation, there can be some ego around ideas, but at the end of the day, we want to stay humble and we want to stay kind. We want to be supportive of the ideas of others, and we want to work collaboratively with those that are around us. The next one is one of my favorites, and it's a motto that I live by. It's the fact that you don't get good things without doing hard things. At different points in this program, you're going to be challenged, you're going to be annoyed at your teacher for giving you feedback, you're going to be frustrated with how things are going, but you've got to move through what we call that learning pit in order to get to the good stuff on the other side. So if you're feeling challenged, if you think it's hard, just keep pushing through, ask for feedback, ask for help, because when you come out the other side of that, you'll be quite surprised what you'll be capable of. The next one is we don't always win. Okay, we've got thousands of students around the country tapping into our Future Anything program this year. And unfortunately, as much as we would love to make every team a winner, there are going to be some teams that get through and some that don't. And so we go into this program looking to develop innovative ideas that make our world a better place, not to go in for winning. Although if you do get through to finals or you access some funding and support, getting some cash and some prizes is also pretty great. The last one is that we high-five greatness. Over the course of this program, you're going to see some of your friends and your peers and perhaps your teacher do some really cool things or come up with some cool ideas or support your ideas to get better. And when you see that stuff, we want you to high-five that greatness that you see in other people. Acknowledge it. Say to that person, hey man, that was a really cool idea, thank you. Or, miss, that piece of feedback that you gave me on my idea was a real game changer. So when you see greatness in other people, make sure that you take the time to acknowledge it. Now, we have about 20 minutes or so left of this session. And in this 20 minutes, we're actually going to start rapidly ideating an idea, an innovative idea that might solve a problem. And then throughout the course of the day, we're going to do a series of other activities that will help refine our idea even further. We call this proto-storm. We are prototyping like a storm, super fast and super quick. And we're prototyping for this mission, which is, as an entrepreneur, pitch an innovative idea that makes the world a better place. Now, basically, we're going to rapidly prototype an idea so that by the time you walk away from Future Fest at the end of today, you can have an idea that solves a problem that has a unique value proposition. So in other words, it's different or better to other solutions that might already exist in trying to solve that problem. Now, to kick off, we're going to do some ideation. Now, ideation is basically idea creation. It's kind of a fancy word for brainstorming. But as you would remember from being in the classroom, sometimes when the teacher asks you to brainstorm, you're kind of met with like crickets and silence. So what we're going to do is set you up with some culture conditions for ideation that make it easier to generate ideas really fast. Because there's nothing more frustrating than being given a prompt in the classroom and literally having no ideas in your head. So we want to set you up to have lots of ideas in a really short period of time. Now, the cultural conditions of ideation play, we have 3 of them. And the first one is go big. Basically what this means is we want you to shoot for as many ideas as you possibly can. In fact, some of our teams of young people generate a huge number of ideas in a really short period of time. We've had students in groups of 4 generate 87 different responses to a prompt in 3 minutes. So that's almost 20 to 30 ideas per person in 3 minutes. Now, that might seem a lot, but when you're working in teams to ideate, it's often possible to bounce ideas off each other and generate really fast ideas quickly. Now, it's really important when you do this to not overthink your ideas. You kind of have to put any idea down, and you want to try and get as close to 100 as possible. The only way to do that, and that leans into our second rule, is that you need to go wild. And in that way, you can't overthink your answers. You can't worry about whether it's possible. You can't worry about whether you have the money for the idea. You just need to put down every crazy idea that you think of, because in fact, sometimes really good ideas start from a crazy idea. And one fantastic example of this is a children's hospital in Melbourne that was trying to solve the problem of kids being really nervous when they would come into the hospital and they were sitting in the waiting room. Any of you who've ever been to a hospital would know, or even a doctor's surgery, sitting in the waiting room can be a really apprehensive and nervous place to be. So what they were finding is these kids would come into the waiting room and they would be sitting down and waiting for their appointment, but their anxiety would be rising in that time, so much so that by the time they walked in to see the doctor, they would be so worked up that it would be really difficult for the doctor to talk to them or to run any tests that they needed to run. So this particular design team were really keen to make that waiting room experience less scary for the kids that were waiting there. So they sat down and they rapidly ideated as many ways to make a waiting room fun for kids. That was the question they wanted to solve. And they threw around lots of different ideas, and part of that was trying to think about, well, what are the places that are fun for kids outside of a hospital, and can we bring some of that into this space? And one person said when they were ideating, let's make the waiting room a zoo. Now, for anybody that's ever been to a hospital waiting room or a doctor's surgery, you would know that trying to bring animals into that kind of environment would seem impossible and definitely crazy. But funnily enough, they took that crazy idea and kind of brought it back down to something that was feasible and reasonable. And what they did was, in the waiting room, they actually worked with the Melbourne Zoo, and they brought in this enclosure that was glass that looked into the waiting room, where they had meerkats and meerkat tunnels. So the kids that were sitting in the waiting room would get to actually watch the meerkats playing through the enclosure that was right in the waiting room. So as you can see, bringing a zoo to a waiting room is a pretty crazy idea. However, that crazy idea actually sparked something that was possible. So again, rule number 2, or our cultural condition number 2, put all the crazy ideas down because you don't know where they're going to end up. The next one is go together. When we're ideating, it's really important to do it as a group, sometimes 3, 4, 5 or 6 people, and we stand up, because the energy that we get from generating ideas when we're standing is very different to when we're sitting. So when we do ideation through this process, what we want to do is get into small groups, stand up around a table. Each person has a piece of paper and a pen, and when they have an idea, they write it down, but they say it out loud when they put it on the table in front of them, so that the rest of the team that are ideating with them can hear that. Why it's really important is somebody might put an idea down and that might spark an idea for you. So they might say, let's bring a zoo into the waiting room, and that you might go, well, actually, I really love underwater world. Why don't we bring like dolphins and sharks into there? And so that's going to spark more thinking and mean that you're going to generate more ideas in a really short period of time. So build on the thinking of others to spark new ideas. So our 3 culture conditions of ideation play are go big, go wild, and go together. Let's actually play right now. In a moment, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, you can do this as a class if you want to and generate the ideas on a whiteboard, or you can form table groups of maybe 3 to 5 or 6 to ideate together. We want to stand up, we want to make sure that we're saying our ideas out loud, and we want to generate as many responses to this prompt as we possibly can in the time. Now, you've got 5 minutes. So if you're working in a group of 3 to 5, I reckon you can get at least 70 responses to this question. Now, the prompt is, in groups or as a class, ideate as many different problems that exist in schools, homes, local communities, or globally throughout the world. Now, these problems that you write down might be as simple as having to line up for my coffee. Maybe that's a problem. Another problem might be, well, world hunger and poverty. Another problem might be like getting affordable phones, or having access to technology, or Wi-Fi being fast, or not being able to get to school on time because the bus routes are really rubbish. You can generate any problem about anything. You want to write down as many as you can, and you want to bounce off the thinking of others. So in this way, we want you to think about, in some ways, what sucks about school? What are the problems that you identify at school? Maybe it's lining up for the tuck shop or the food that's at the tuck shop. Maybe it's getting between classes. Maybe it's the bell times. And then it might be, what about when you're getting to and from school? Are there any problems that you see on your routes in that direction? Are there any problems that you notice in your community, around your home, at your sporting clubs, or in your extracurricular hobbies, or the places that you go when you're hanging out with your friends? And then on top of that, are there any really big global problems that we should be tackling? And that might be about our environment, or it might be about mental health, or it might be about any number of other things around equality and equity, and making sure people can get access to the things that matter to them. We're going to give you 5 minutes now to generate as many problems as you can. Make sure you're writing them down, either in a small group or on a board as a class. Your time starts now. Awesome. I know that you guys would have generated a huge amount of problems in that time. And try and think about how you can maybe keep those problems as an artifact, because you might want to come back to that list of problems later. Now, what we're going to do with that list is you've got, maybe 50, 70, maybe more ideas sitting there. And what we want to do is try and, we've been divergent with our thinking and thinking about lots of problems. We now need to converge and now start to think about, well, which problem do we want to focus on? And so on our Entrepreneur's Odyssey, we really want you to pick your problem based on your lived experiences and your passions. Because the more tightly connected you are to the problem that you pick, in the fact that maybe you've experienced the problem, or it's connected to a passion that you have, then the more committed you're going to be to solving that problem. But more than that, the more compelling you're going to be when you pitch your solution. Because judges and other people who want to support you love it when they can see the personal connection to your problem and your solution. So those are the filters we want to use to sort of bring that back down. So in this way, looking at all the problems in front of you, we want you to pick one problem that links to a passion that you have. So it should be something that you're excited to learn more about, or you're excited to solve. Maybe something that you have an interest in already. It should be something that you already know something about. If you know nothing about the problem, then it's probably not the problem to pick. The second lens that we want you to choose is lived experience. So the best entrepreneurs solve problems that they themselves have experienced. Or perhaps it's somebody really close to them. So it might not be a problem that you've experienced, but it might be a problem that maybe your parents, your grandparents, or a close family friend have experienced. That close connection to the problem means that you're an authentic voice in solving it. It also gives you credibility in solving that problem. So having that close connection or that lived experience to the problem means that the solutions that you think of are probably more likely to be effective and are going to resonate with other people that have experienced that problem. The last problem, or the lens that we want you to use in picking the problem, is that we want it to be something that can be changed. So it should be a problem that you can do something about. Now, things like poverty or hunger in the world are big, hairy, or homelessness. They're big, wicked problems that you as an individual are not going to solve. However, it is possible to have some impact in those problems. So they're still ones you can pick. But perhaps, if you've picked a problem like, I don't want to go to school anymore, that's probably unlikely to be a problem that you can necessarily change for yourself and for other people. So try and pick a problem that you know you can make a dent in. Now, we're going to put another 3 minutes up on the timer. You can do this as a class, pick a class problem to tackle, or you can do this in small groups and choose a problem that you want to work on together. But you've got 3 minutes now to pick one wicked problem that you want to focus on today as we move through our design thing. Awesome job, guys. So you should have looked at this huge amount of problems and then whittled down to the wicked problem that you perhaps have a lived experience of yourself that is connected to maybe something you're passionate about and is changeable. So something you can make a dent in or do something about. What we're going to do now is we're going to tap back into our Entrepreneur's Odyssey, and we're going to think of what we can do about solving that. Now, the steps that we're going to move you through here are one way to get to a solution really fast. Now, to do that, what we're going to do is look at products and services. For those that don't know, products are things, stuff, things that you can pretty much put in a shopping trolley, for example. So it might be toys, it might be clothes, it might be games that you can buy, it might be accessories that you put on your body like watches and hats, it might be products that clean your house or furniture you put in your home, all the stuff that's under your bed, the things you need for school. These are all different types of products. The other side of the business industry is often services. So products, stuff you can buy. Services are things that you do for other people. Now, these might include cleaning services. They might include mowing the lawns, cleaning the windows. It might include doing the shopping for somebody. It might include walking somebody's dog. All the things that people do that you could do for them. It also includes other services like, people who provide legal services or health services. These are all things that you do for somebody else. So we've got our products, which are things that we buy, and then services, which are things that we do. And now what we're going to get you to do is in those teams or as a class, we're going to get you to ideate again as many different products, so things that you can buy, and as many different services, so things that you could do, as you possibly can. And you might do this by either on the board or on a piece of paper, just creating a little table that's got products on one side and services on another. And we're going to give you 5 minutes now to generate as many things that you can think of that are products or services. So when it comes to products, again, you can look at what you're wearing, what's on your desk, what's around your classroom. These are all the things that you can buy in a shop. And then for services, these are all the things that people might pay other people to do for them. Like I said, cleaning, mowing, other specialized services. So we're going to give you 5 minutes now. How many different products and how many different services can you pick? Your time starts now. Cracking job, team. I know you will have generated a wicked number of problems and a wicked number of services. Now that brings us to the end of our first session. So we're going to take a 10-minute break now. And in that time, we want you to get up, maybe grab a drink of water, move around and stretch. Make sure you're off your devices where you can and really break the focus from the text so that we can refresh for our next session. Our next session has some incredible entrepreneurs that I'm really excited to introduce you to. So take 10 minutes now to go to the bathroom, get a drink, reset and refresh. And we're going to see you back in 10 minutes time.